Hi, my name is Patrick Vaughn. I am a Presbyterian minister. Welcome to Scratching the Surface. This is a discussion, non-scripted, about race relations in our world today. I am joined by my colleague, Terrell Carter. Terrell, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am a pastor in the St. Louis, Missouri area, and I am also an administrator in higher education, and I'm a former police officer for the city of St. Louis.
Thank you. Terrell, this is the fourth conversation we've recorded about race relations. I want to begin today with a quote from the actor Kevin Bacon. He said last week that white men like me, old white men like me, need to shut up and to listen. Well, Kevin Bacon and I are about the same age. And so he just called me old, but okay. Terrell, what do old men like me, like Kevin Bacon, need to hear?
I think that in a sense, he's right. It's not that opinion doesn't matter. It does not mean that your opinion doesn't matter. It means that there are more ways to see the world, more ways to experience life than just yours. I think that one of the challenges has always been, and we have talked about this off air, or, when we're preparing to record, a lot of this is, a lot of the response that we see from white people is because they are becoming uncomfortable, because they are being faced with things that they either did not know occurred or because they have never experienced it. They don't think it happens. And, are you telling me that I should pay more attention to this? Well, I don't have anything to do with this. Like the old line, I didn't own any slaves, so why are you blaming me for slavery? Well, some of that is a response to discomfort and misperception. Mm-hmm. The point I'm trying to make is that I think what Kevin Bacon is saying is that people who are in the majority don't always have to have the answer. Their experience is not always the primary point of life or primary point of life experience, that they should be willing and able to hear someone else speak without trying to discredit what someone is saying. One of the ironies of all this is, and you and I have talked about it before, mm-hmm. This police didn't just start doing these things. It's just now that these things are being recorded. We have generations. I come from generations of Black people who all have the exact same story, from my grandfather being locked up and he being told he was drunk, but it was his word against the police officer's word, and we had to ride with my grandmother to go pick him up, and I'll never forget that incident. Mm-hmm. I've talked to you before about the times that my mother had been stopped by police and all those different things. I come from generations, and that's not even counting what happened to my great grandmother and great grandfather, or great grandmothers and great grandfathers, and the stories that I've heard. That their mere existence or the fact that they lived in a particular town meant that they would experience certain things at the hand of the police. And this was not periodic. I'll give you another story. This is not even something that involves me. I just read a story today about African-American male in a particular town, and he was arrested 60 plus times, arrested, charged, and pled guilty 60 plus times to trespassing. You want to know where he was trespassing? He was trespassing at his place of employment. And so this man would work, clean up the lot, do all these different kinds of things. And his owner shared in the story, and then all of a sudden he wouldn't be there. He would start working and then he would be gone. And he'd come back the following day, and I asked him what happened. Well, I got arrested. The only way that I was going to get out is for me to plead guilty. So I pled guilty so I could come back and work. And the other thing is, this gentleman who was being arrested had mental challenges, that he was not a fully functioning, or what we would consider to be fully functioning adult. But every day, and so this white owner of this establishment called and said, hey, you all are arresting this Black guy. He works here. You need to leave him alone. And you know what the police's response was? Okay, we're going to just start arresting him everywhere we see him, which they did. The owner made complaints, everybody ignored him, made complaints, everybody ignored him. And what he finally did was he put up a video camera, and he started recording all these incidents where police would just pull up onto the property, see this guy, and arrest him every single day. And nothing happened until he started showing people these videos that he had taken. And it wasn't even him showing the police these videos. It was showing the media these videos, and the media then showing them publicly. Only after that did change happen. Only after that did this guy stop being arrested. Again, the point is, just because it's not your experience does not make it not true. And when you have generations upon generations of people saying the same story, how long does it take for you to believe their words?
That's unbelievable.
Well, but again,
it's painfully. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You said it's unbelievable, it's painful, but unfortunately, there are people this is their story, this is their life experience, and it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make Kevin Bacon bad because you haven't experienced it, because they haven't experienced it. That doesn't mean that at all. What it means is you, Kevin Bacon, whoever, now have an opportunity to listen and to try to understand, and then to make a personal decision. Do I want to participate in this? Do I not want to participate in this? Do I want to help as a part of this, or do I want to just mind my business? And I'm not mad at anyone for whatever personal choice they make, but it's the idea that, again, when you have so many people saying the same thing, you have to give them time, you have to give them credit, but you also have to make a decision yourself on what your next step is.
I think it's important to point out that Kevin Bacon didn't say old men like me need to shut up and then say nothing or be silent or turn away or put our heads in the ground. He said be silent and listen. And what you're saying to me is that's what's needed in part in the struggle for more and more people, just to be quiet and listen, and to take in the stories and to try to see and understand the narrative that has been woven through the fabric of our society for generations. How do we help people see that or to hear that? I mean, it's hard for me to put that into words. You alluded to it a minute ago that people might say, I didn't hold any slaves. I'm not responsible. But that's too easy a way out. I mean, the question still is, can you see, can you recognize, can you identify the patterns of discrimination and oppression? How do we help people see?
Well, one of the challenges with the idea that a person begins to see something, again, is what next? If I see these patterns of discrimination, then I should probably do something about it. So part of this denial is, if I'm able to deny it, if I'm able to say I don't see it, if I'm able to say that it only happens once in every blue moon, then that doesn't require me to do anything. That doesn't require me to personally, get involved or to personally recognize the benefit that I have, that if I am a white male who fits a certain demographic, then I know that these things are not going to happen to me. But if I acknowledge that, then I'm also acknowledging the disadvantage that someone else is under, which literally gives me the advantage over them as well. How do we help people see? How do we help people interact? How do we help people talk? I mean, we still have to just keep bringing these things up. I mean, that's just one of the ways. I'm going to use a very intentional word is help people to become uncomfortable. One of the challenges in all of this is people are used to living. We want our lives to be what we want them to be. I want to be able to get up at the same time or whatever time I want. I want to be able to, drive to where I want. I want all the conveniences, not just in my work life and my professional life, but I want all the conveniences in my personal life as well. And I don't want anything that takes my attention or focus off of me and my happiness or the happiness of those who are important to me. And the only way, or one of the ways to interrupt that, for people to start seeing that there's more in the world than just them and their happiness, is to make them uncomfortable. I mean, that's part of what the riots and the uprisings, or whatever word people want to use, that's part of the purpose of those, is to inconvenience people in a very dramatic way. I saw a meme, and I don't necessarily buy into memes, but it was a meme of black people shutting down a highway and white people in cars. And the meme essentially said, if you're inconvenienced by the highway being shut down for an hour, imagine what it feels like to be an African American who has their life inconvenienced, forever or for their entire lifetime, And the anger that you feel with the highway being shut down for an hour, that's the anger we feel every day or every time we see a black person, being killed by police or being unlawfully arrested by police or not earning a job or whatever because of someone's prejudices.
One of the complaints I hear in the struggle for racial justice goes like this. You can't change history. They're trying to change history. I never learned about the Tulsa massacre when I was in school. I never learned about the Wilmington massacre in North Carolina. I learned about the Tulsa massacre by watching The Watchmen on HBO back in December. And I had no idea what had happened. And I was like, that can't be true. And so I looked it up, and it was true. And there were people in biplanes that day that were killing African Americans on the ground. And they burned down the Black Wall Street to the ground. What do we say to people who claim, oh, you're changing history?
No, my immediate response is black people we don't control the narrative to be able to change history in the first place.
Sorry,
no.
But I'm just right. That's so true.
But again, I think I've said this to you before. There's the saying that racism is so entrenched in the history of the United States that when you push against racism, it seems like you're pushing against America. That's part of this idea that when you say anything outside of the traditional narrative, then you are anti-social, you hate America, you hate freedom, you hate God and country. No, we don't even get to control the narrative. We don't primarily write the textbooks. I'm sorry, that's a very general statement saying we, but so I live in St. Louis, Missouri. Most people don't even know about the East St. Louis massacre that happened several years ago. Again, so I mean, you're shaking your head like, no, you haven't. But I understand. So, particularly, it was less than 100 years ago. I forget the exact time, but it's so St. Louis, across the Mississippi River, is a small town called East St. Louis. Manufacturing company, multiple African Americans, but a much larger white population, and there were also foreigners in the town as well. What I mean, foreigners, foreign born. And so times were tough. And what the businesses were doing was white people didn't want to work for certain wages, whatever. Black people would come in and work. Mm-hmm. And so you know exactly how that turns out. All these black people are coming here stealing our jobs, all this kind of stuff. And so what white people started doing was going and attacking people in the African American neighborhoods. And so one particular day, white guy drives by, shoots at African Americans. 20 minutes later, another car comes by. The citizens think this is the same thing is about to happen, and they shoot the car, not knowing that it was an undercover police sergeant in the car. And so all hell breaks loose, and a race war starts. And it's not even a race war, it's a massacre, because white people just en masse went to the black community and started burning down homes and shooting people as they came out. I can't even remember the number. But in addition to that, when black people tried to escape, they were shot coming out of the houses. They tried to escape across the bridge, across the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River Bridge, the bridge that was used was blown up to make sure nobody could get across to escape. And multiple African Americans were killed that day. Again, it all started because white people were mad because they believed black people were coming into and taking their jobs. They went into the African American neighborhood, started shooting it up. And when African Americans defended themselves, unfortunately, they shot a police officer. But that's all anyone needed to, exert their type of justice, their type of retribution against that community. But how many people actually know about that? Right. I have a friend who's an artist, who's a filmmaker, and she made a film about it last year. it may be interesting to when this finally goes up to have a link to that film, or at least a link to that page for people to be able to find out information about it.
If listening to other perspectives and other journeys to truth is changing the history, so be it. Really.
Yeah.
So the important thing, there were many important things, but moving towards truth. There can be multiple truths. We can debate all day long about what's true, what's not true. But there's still the reality that in these different situations, African Americans were massacred. And these are stories that have not been told by the dominant culture.
Right.
And so when they hit my ears, this Kevin Bacon wannabe, I go like, what? Really? Wow. Oh gosh, we're getting close to out of time. Darn. What's the economic influence of racism? You alluded to the African Americans going into St. Louis to get jobs. People didn't like it. There is a major economic factor in racism, right? I mean, slavery was an economic enterprise.
Yes, very much so. I mean, again, it's the idea that one particular group of people, there was a preacher who I don't follow, white preacher, but he was confronted with all these ideas like the economic injustice, the injustice of slavery, all those things. Last week, he said, well, that's just the blessing of being white, that God has blessed white people in a particular way, and nobody should be mad. We should all accept it. I mean, again, it's this overall idea that a certain group of people deserves, and again, I'm not saying that everyone believes that, so let's make sure that, unfortunately, I have to reiterate that. But
well, you do have to reiterate it because we live in such a polarized society that you're either with me or against me.
Yeah.
And if you don't clarify where you are, oh, he's against me.
Well, but so that even falls again into the economics, that this is about me, this is about us, that if you would just work. So I always hate to do this, but so I have a book called, I forget the full title because it's changed a couple of times now, but it's about the Protestant work ethic and how the Protestant work ethic
to hinder and to hold back African Americans, women, and the poor. And we have this idea that if you are not willing to work, then you shouldn't get what I got, not acknowledging that you are able to work because of certain privileges and certain benefits that have been existing for you and your people for how many years, and how many economic hindrances that have been. We talked about, I hate this argument about the flag, because white people say, well, my father, my grandfather, my great grandfather went and fought for this country so you can have your freedom to protest. You're right. But my father was in the military. My younger brother, who was 10 years younger than me, fought in the military. My grandfather went and fought in the Korean War. And when they came back from overseas, they didn't get the benefits that your grandfather got, your father, your great grandfather. They were told, no, you do not get the benefits of the GI Bill. Yes, all these white officers get the benefits of the GI Bill, but no, you as a black man do not. Yes, they get the benefits of being able to go to college or have, that benefit, but no, because you are black, you don't get to do those things. Again, the system has been set up to reward and to benefit certain people economically, socially, and all other ways. And again, back to the Kevin Bacon comment, you don't know this because you are the beneficiary of it on a daily basis. It just becomes part of your life. Mm-hmm. But it's completely different when you're on the outside looking in. That doesn't make you a bad person. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you're hateful. Doesn't mean that you're racist. But what it does mean is that we all are participants in a system that most definitely doesn't treat everyone equally and allows and makes it possible for other people. And just because we had a black president doesn't mean the system is fixed. Just because we had a black president doesn't mean that the system really is equal. Just because we had a black president doesn't mean any of that. That just means that the system played a particular game, or people in the system played a particular game for a certain amount of time, and now the system is returning back to its normal self.
With a vengeance. A strong political, emotional, cultural reaction
Right.
to African American leadership.
Yep.
African Americans were denied the GI Bill when they came back.
So when they came back, they were not allowed to take the benefit. They were told that either it does not exist or you don't qualify for it. This is all history.
Terrell, we're going to have to wrap up. We're at the end point. But once again, I'm at a loss for words. I did not know. As I said in our previous interviews, we live in two different worlds.
Hmm. You know what? You know what? We do live in two different worlds, but I also, in a sense, live in your world as well. And what I mean by that is I've learned the rules of the game. I've learned how to speak a particular way. I've learned how to carry myself in a particular way. I've learned how to act in a particular way. I've gained a certain level or type of education, which now gives me entrance into areas that I typically would not have. Now, I am doing a lot of soul searching these past weeks because I'm asking myself, and I'm working through, what does that mean for me? Am I really being true to who I am? Am I being true to, whatever? Mm-hmm. But the fact that I've learned these things and learned how to cross over or how to code switch or whatever the word is people want to use, what does that mean for me? That is what has had to happen. Because that young man who didn't speak the Queen's English or the King's English, mm-hmm. Who lived in a particular neighborhood, who dressed and acted a particular way, if he was still around right now, his life would probably be a little bit different from what my life is now. And my life is the way that it is. I'm blessed regardless, but my life is the way that it is because I've been willing and able to cross over into your world and receive the benefits of that.
You've had to adapt to survive.
Well, I don't want to say survive. I've had to adapt in order to, if I want my life to be a particular way, then that comes with certain things. I'm going to survive regardless. The question is, what quality of life do I want to have while I'm surviving?
And there's a difference between surviving and thriving.
Yep, there you go. Yep, that's a really good way of saying it.
Terrell, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time. For those of you who are watching, if you have questions for us, issues you would like us to discuss, please contact us. And you can do that on Facebook through Messenger, and we will be glad to discuss them. Terrell, there's some more things I want to discuss. We can't do it today, but maybe next time.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the year 2047, which is going to be a big discussion. And for those of you who are watching, you have to tune in to find out. I'm Patrick Vaughn. This is Scratching the Surface. And with me today has been
Terrell Carter.
Y'all take care. Bye-bye.